What's going on, everybody? Des here, and this is a build guide, I guess you could say. I'm not going to take credit for this. This is a build that I saw from Dunkelvay, and to me it didn't seem like it was practical for a casual such as myself. We'll get into that a little more towards the end of the video, but basically this is a LON Legacy of Nightmares build. Meaning you have the Wailing Host Ring and Litany of the Undaunted, and it will give you increased damage for each ancient non-set bonus item that you have. And as you see here, this is a T10 run, and obviously I'm picking stuff up, so that's going to slow down a little bit as well. And that's because I don't really have a whole lot of materials, but basically the way this build works, you just hold strafe and use your abilities to make you run faster. And I don't really know what much I can say about the build. You'll see how the build works towards the end of the video when I go over the gear and the skills. But that's basically the gameplay itself. You hold strafe down, you activate Shadow Power every time it's off of, every time it's not active. Get to an Elite Pack or Champion Pack and hit your Phantom Knives. Vengeance should always be off cooldown, and your Wolf Companion you should only be using whenever you're getting ready to kill an Elite Pack. So, yeah, this build, in my opinion, is not the build of choice you should be using if you consider yourself a casual player, and it certainly isn't a build that you should be using at the start of a season. I would suggest using Juliana's Essence if you're running solo. If you're running as a group, then if you don't plan on being the primary damage dealer, then you could use Canes in some way, shape, or form, and just try and keep up with the rest of the group. And this clear is going to be quite a bit longer. Again, my paragons aren't the greatest, and my gear isn't completely optimized the way it needs to be. So basically the reason I'm making this video is for the people that are questioning the ability of the build at low paragons. And while I am doing decent clear times, it's not anything to be completely braggish about. It's certainly not going to get you the 2-minute rift challenge unless you have 2,000 paragons and every single piece ancient and 100% optimized the way it needs to be. But I'm going to let the gameplay finish out. There will also be a Greater Rift clear, Greater Rift 50. So definitely stay tuned for that. The Greater Rift actually seems to work out better than the regular Rifts for whatever reason. I do a Greater Rift 50, which is higher than a T10 Rift, so yeah, it might have just been the pylons, I don't know. I did have a conduit with pylons, so that probably helped. Anyways, stay tuned to the end of the video. I'm going to go over the gear and some alternatives to gear if you don't have everything you need. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and we'll see you in a bit. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with the commentary. So, this is going to be the gear portion, and I'm going to point out right now I don't have all the gear that I actually need. So let's start with the stuff that I do have that I need. So you obviously need Dawn, reduced vengeance cooldown. You definitely want this to be at least 60%. Unfortunately, I couldn't get anything better at the time, and that caused me to need the 10% to cooldown. Otherwise, I'd like to have 10% damage, dex, hatred regen. Firewalkers increase strafe damage, dex, resist. Calamity, percent damage, dex. And I actually got lucky and got lightning damage on this, and then increase hatred regen. Then this is mandatory. You need the Wailing Host and Litany of the Undaunted to get your 2-piece, which, if you don't know what this is, every set item you have that is not, or I'm sorry, every ancient item you have that is not a set piece that you get a bonus from, you get an increased 100% damage and 4% damage reduction. So this being said, you can have set pieces as long as you're not acquiring a set bonus from it. As you see here, I have the Crown's Belt, but if it were ancient, I'd still get an extra 100%. Which this item is mandatory also. This will give you the increased run speed, and as long as you don't take damage, you should have it at all times. Saint Archu's Gauge, another item that is helpful. If for whatever reason you get damage, you get an extra shield. In this build, you are going to be relatively squishy. For stats, you want crit hit chance, crit hit damage, area damage, and dex. I obviously don't have that on this piece. Next, you're going to want your Nemesis Bracers or Warzechian Arm Guards. I have that in the cube. Ideally, use whatever works best, whatever's ancient and has the best stats. In this case, my Nemesis Bracers has 20% lightning damage, which is mandatory for bracers. Aside from that, you can have Dex and All Resist. And Mantle of Channeling, another required item. This will give you increased damage and 25% damage reduction while you're channeling. So for us, that would be strafe. And as long as you're moving, you'll get your increased resource generation up to 25%. And then just make sure, well, you can't even stand still with strafe, so that part doesn't really apply to us. That can be 25% on instead of 22 for all we care. Next is Andariel's Visage. This one needs to be ancient as well. This is obviously not an ideal roll. I'd like to have lightning if possible, crit hit chance, dex, and armor instead of the fire taken. Then we have our Hellfire Amulet. You want lightning, dex, crit hit chance, or damage, depending on if you feel like you have enough crit hit chance, great, and then you just put the rest into crit hit damage. And then the piece that I'm missing is the actual chest piece. For this, you want the Black Feather Cloak, which I can show you in the cube what it does. Here, I'll get rid of that. Oops. Alright, so Black Feather gives you up to 800% damage on a homing rocket back at an attacker whenever you get hit, which is huge. That is actually very helpful. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a good one or even an ancient one at that, for that matter. And then in the cube, like I said, you're going to have the Warzechian Arm Guards, Lord Greenstone's Fan, which is going to be your main source of attack with Fan and Knives, and then Convection of Elements. Alternatively, if you feel like you have enough damage, you can use a Avarice Band in place of that, so that way you don't actually have to run back and pick up your health globes. So let's go to the skills. I'll show you how all this works together. You're going to have Preparation, Focused Mind, which gives you discipline over time while you have it active. Fan of Knives, Pinpoint Accuracy, and this is somewhat negotiable depending on what your gear selection is. Pinpoint Accuracy if you have lightning gear, or alternatively you can use Assassin's Knives with physical gear. Next, you're going to have Shadow Power, Shadow Glide, which gives you increased movement speed while your Shadow Power is active. Strafe, Drifting Shadow, increased movement speed as well. I believe it's 100%, yep. And it's also lightning damage. So alternatively, let's see. It wouldn't be terrible if you used Rocket Storm, which is fire. Wait, that's bad. You want something physical. Okay, so this is what you would want to use alternatively, is Stinging Steel if you're using a physical skills. However, you do lose that extra movement speed, so you'll have to get movement speed elsewhere. Then Wolf Companion, that's mandatory. Whenever the patch drops 2.4.2, you're going to get a little nerf. It'll be 15% instead of 30%. And then next you're going to use Vengeance Seethe, which gives you increased regeneration for hatred. Alternatively, if you feel like you're dying and not killing stuff fast enough, you can switch to Darkheart. However, you should expect to be losing a lot more hatred. And then for passives, this is what I'm using. This isn't 100% optimal because I don't have all the gear that I need. Blood Vengeance, that is mandatory. You get an extra 30 hatred and 3 discipline whenever you are healed by a health globe. This is huge because if you're killing stuff fast enough, health globes are going to be pooping out of these dead enemies like crazy. I am using Ambush, which is useful against champion and elite packs. Deals an additional 40% damage to enemies above 75%. So essentially, as soon as you engage the enemy, you should hit Phantom Knives whenever you're in range, and they should just get shit on. Now, I'm using Thrill of the Hunt, which slows enemies when I use my Hatred Spender, which is constantly with Strafe. Ideally, if you can get a Hellfire Amulet that uses Call of the Weak, those will work hand in hand together. And if you're using the correct chest piece, the Black Feather Cloak, you want Ballistics, which will increase the damage of your rockets by 100%. And you have an additional 20% chance to fire a homing rocket for 150% weapon damage just from attacking. And then this item is mandatory as well. Tactical Advantage whenever you use your Shadow Power, which is pretty much on cooldown. Well, not on cooldown, but whenever the bar goes away. 6% increased movement speed for 2 seconds. Granted, it's only 2 seconds, but every little bit helps. And then if you find yourself dying for whatever reason, you can use Leech, but you will expect to lose some damage from that. But that is going to do it for the guide. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. Let me know what you think in the comments. And I will credit Dunkelbay. This is where I actually found the build from. And he was actually getting a lot of hate on the video because his Paragon's, over 2,000. Mine's around 1,000, so my personal thoughts on the build, it is great as long as you have all ancient gear and I would say around 800 Paragons. It's not very practical at the beginning of a season. Fortunately, Unhallowed Essence is going to be part of the bonus set. So if you're going to play Demon Hunter, definitely stay tuned for a UE video. I'd like to do one of those pretty shortly. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.